Hello folks, just back for a quick car news video for you. I thought I'd treat you to another one this week. You won't see quite so many videos coming out on the channel over the next couple of weeks just because I've got a lot going on that's not YouTube related. Just a little bit of a busy time, so there won't be quite as many videos coming out, but I have got quite a few in stock, so there will be some content still, but don't worry, I haven't died or fallen off a cliff or anything. Let's crack straight on. We've got WhatCar to start off with. We've got a few WhatCar stories, some Autocar and some Auto Express. We're starting off with this, the VW ID.1 small electric car to cost 17 grand. Well, that's the forecasted price anyway. We don't know anything too much about it yet. The ID.1 is really going to be a replacement for the VW 𝘼𝙁𝙁𝙁 and like the 𝘼𝙁𝙁𝙁𝙁 that I've got and the 𝘼𝙁𝙁𝙁𝙁𝙁, etc. 160 miles of range, and which is the same basically as the one it's replaced. At 17 grand, that could be quite interesting. The really interesting thing though is that for 21 grand, it looks like you're going to be able to get the ID.2, which is going to be a bit bigger and possibly have 280 miles of range. So I think when push comes to shove and the cars eventually get released, which by the way is not due until 2026, 2027, I believe, I think the gap in price will be significantly more. I wouldn't be surprised to see this at sort of 23, 24 grand if the other one is really at 17. I also wouldn't be surprised if that 17 grand car ended up being 20, I have to say. So it'll be interesting to see what happens price-wise, but it's great to see VW putting out some cheap cars again. Not cheap cars, but more affordable cars. Folks, just a very quick reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thanks. The government has launched a study into LED headlights following dazzling concerns. RAC have put something together on this, and they've said that, 91% of drivers report that they've been dazzled while driving, and 85% of those believe the problem is only getting worse. I mean, with LED headlights, I guess you could turn the voltage down on them so they won't be as bright, but then they won't be as effective. And so many cars have already got them. If you did come up with a countermeasure, that's something that's going to have to be retrofitted, which is going to be pretty expensive, and a lot of people just wouldn't bother. So I think that's the real problem with it. I don't generally have too much of a problem with LED headlights, but recently did, driving on country roads at night in the rain, and I noticed that cars coming towards me were just dazzling me like heck, shall I say. And I found it really distracting and a bit dangerous, to be honest. At times felt like people were coming towards you with full beam. I was in the MGHS at the time, which is obviously a car where you sit fairly high up. So I don't know if that makes a massive difference. But what are your experiences with LED headlights? Do you not have a problem with them, or are you blinded by them on a daily basis? Let me know in the comments. Right, this is really cool. Mercedes have opened up a large electric car battery recycling facility, which will recycle 2,500 tonnes of materials a year. Now, this is something that more car manufacturers need to get into, because car batteries are made currently using, natural precious materials, which by their very nature are finite. And they have to be mined or procured in a way that's not usually particularly environmentally friendly. And of course, at some point, they're going to run out and the price of them will go through the roof. So everyone needs to take this pretty seriously. EV batteries, despite popular opinion, should last for a good 200,000 miles. And that could be between 10 and 20 years of driving, and that life of them manufacturers regard as when they can no longer hold 70% of their original capacity. I mean, even when they do get below that 70% figure eventually, I guess you'll still have a usable battery until one day it just completely stops. But yeah, it's probably time to replace it at that time. So I think that's great. There is a real cottage industry for this kind of stuff. There are people out there now that can refurbish cells and packs, and there is recycling going on right now with batteries on a much smaller scale. But for a big company like Mercedes to come out and do this on a grand scale will hopefully act as a bit of a prompt for others to do the same, because if they don't, the prices will simply just keep getting more expensive. Some new car brands coming to the UK this year. We've got 𝙇𝙄𝙉𝙆𝙎, that's a Chinese company, part of BYD. I saw them at Geneva and they had a couple of luxury MPVs like very, very luxury MPVs. And this thing looks quite cool. I didn't know they were coming to the UK, but evidently they are. Then we've got Firefly, which is a company owned by NIO. This looks really a lot like the Honda E, I think, if you remember that. Sorry, bit of a yawn going on and boring myself. This is going to be a Renault 5 rival that's priced from as little as 16 grand in China. That probably means it will be 30 grand over here though, because when you see these prices in China and then what we end up paying here, there's not usually a great deal of similarity. 𝙄𝙄𝙉𝙆, there's a bit of controversy around 𝙄𝙄𝙉 at the moment, because they recently did something with a load of YouTubers apparently, where they basically paid them to go and review their car and do a bit of a road trip. I don't know how much truth there is in that, but that's what someone was telling me. And that's all a bit smelly, isn't it? I often get asked, do you get paid to do car reviews? And no, you absolutely don't. And if you did get paid to do car reviews, what's the point in it? Because don't they want your completely unbiased opinion? I think that's the point of a review. If you review things positively because someone's paying you, then you haven't reviewed it, have you? You've said what they want you to say. That's owned by Chery, who also own the 𝘼𝙁𝙁𝙁𝙄𝙇𝙄𝙼𝙎, which you might have seen a few of those out in the wild now. Then you've got Leap Motor. Stellantis have got the rights to sell that all over the world, I think. I mean, that looks like one of those old 80s disability vehicles, I think, but it's a rival to the Dacia Spring and has a much longer range than the Dacia Spring. There's also a couple of SUVs from them, a B10 and a C10, and they look a lot more palatable, if I'm being honest. Mobilize, I saw these at the Paris Motor Show, really cool. Bit of a Renault Twizy kind of thing going on, and a bit of a rival to things like the Microlino, Citroen Ami maybe, and I think they're modular, these. I remember at Paris showing them with different backs on, so there was like a cargo version, a pickup version. Very cool little things that would be great local delivery vehicles, great marketing vehicles actually. Onvo, so this is a brand new Chinese company owned by NIO, and as you can see, they're going directly after the Tesla Model Y with that, aren't they? 620 miles of range on China's CLTC cycle, but that's probably getting on for 450 in the real world, or on the WLTP at least, which is not the real world. XPeng we've seen quite a lot about. This one's the G6, I believe. A lot of people are really looking forward to them, and I'm hoping I get a drive in one. Then we've got the Yangwang U8, which is the big Range Rover-y kind of thing, or Defender thing, or something like that. Over 100 grand for that. Very luxurious inside. It can do tank turn, so it can just turn on the spot like that. The real killer from Yangwang though is the U9, which is their supercar, and that thing looks amazing. I'm not usually too excited by supercars, and that one really does float my boat. It looks incredible, absolutely incredible. Yangwang's not the catchiest name for the UK market though, is it? I have to say. Best selling cars in the UK, Tesla drops in January. Probably nothing to do with the fact that Elon's been doing salutes on the TV. Number one's the Kia Sportage, 3,476 units, always popular, the Sportage. Qashqai's coming in at number 2. The Corsa at number 3. Obviously the Corsa, you can get a petrol or electric version. The Golf at number 4. That new Golf's really very good. Number 5 is the Peugeot 3008. You can get that as a petrol, a diesel, a hybrid, an electric. That's going to help the sales figures immensely. Same with the 2008. Number 7 is the Ford Puma. Number 8 is the Nissan Juke. Number 9 is the MG HS, which I reviewed recently and really enjoyed that car. I think that's brilliant value for money. Quite a big car, and you can get that for 25 grand, which is fairly impressive. And then the MG ZS, which I haven't driven yet. One thing to note there is I think pretty much all of those are available on the Motability scheme, and that really does help new car sales. But I think new car sales in general are going to struggle a bit while the government's doing daft things with tax. Right, this story really, really annoys me. Councils hike parking costs in bid to plug budget holes. Local authorities look to motorists in a bid to make as much revenue as possible. It's just one example here. At present, motorists can park for free in Dudley Council's car parks for 2 hours. Under the new plans, they'll be charged £120 for an hour, £250 for 2. It's not a huge amount of money to pay to park these days, £120 an hour. But You can park there for free at the moment, and soon you won't be able to. Now, I live just outside Bournemouth, and in Bournemouth itself, you have to see a mortgage advisor before you go and park. And then when you get there, most of the shops are closed and abandoned or being turned into blocks of flats. It's a great place if you want to go and buy some crack, I think, nowadays. And it used to be a place that was a little bit upmarket. The high street was always packed. You had everything there. I mean, there's about 2 clothes shops now, and one of them's Primark. And just outside of town, there's a big retail park, which has got loads of big high street names. You can park there completely for free, park right outside. All the facilities are there you could want. There's restaurants, there's shops, there's places to get a coffee, all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can park for free. So why are you going into the town centre? So you've got all those shops now that are completely empty. None of them are employing anyone. All the council needs to do is make the parking free and perhaps reduce business rates to get people into those shops again. And suddenly the economy is all being buoyed along. People are spending money. People are generating VAT. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. When will local government and national government learn that constantly battering people with taxes and stealth taxes and charges like this actually is massively detrimental to the economy? Am I mad? Let me know in the comments. Right, this looks interesting. New zero risk salary sacrifice targets employer concerns. So this is a company called Love Electric, and they're doing salary sacrifice schemes with used electric cars so that people on lower incomes can get into one, and it makes sense. So at the moment, salary sacrifice schemes, some are good, some are bad. But they tend to make more sense when you're a 40% taxpayer than they do if you're a 20% taxpayer. But obviously there are loads of used electric cars available at some really, really good prices. And they're going to take advantage of that. What will be interesting to see is just how well they price it. And if they do a good job with it and it's successful, it'd be interesting to see if that then gets rolled out to private customers. If there are some leasing companies that then start getting involved in doing some good rates on some used vehicles. Because at the moment, used car leasing, which is one of the things I get asked about the most, is a complete waste of time, in my personal opinion, because the rates are just rubbish. It's usually hardly any cheaper or the same or more than getting a brand new car. And you've got one that is often out of warranty. You have to MOT it every year. Everything's got a bit of wear on it, and it just doesn't make sense. So I hope this does well, because I think used car leasing would be quite an interesting thing to have a look at if it only made financial sense, which currently it doesn't. We're on Auto Express now. Electric Aston Martin to get vibrating body to mimic a V12 engine. Now this seems like a horrendous gimmick. But so did the fake gears in the Ioniq 5, and they work incredibly well, brilliantly well, and they make it so much more interesting. And there are huge numbers of car enthusiasts out there that are just not excited about electric cars because they're going to miss that visceral feeling of the engine rumbling and the noise and all that. Well, if simulation does the job effectively, well, why not, I guess? It could work brilliantly well, this, or it could be really naff. But as it's coming from Aston, you'd have to think they'll put a bit of time and effort into getting it just right, wouldn't you? But yeah, interesting to see when it comes along anyway. Trump's tariffs may be good news on UK fuel prices. They're saying here that his tariffs have basically softened wholesale oil prices. Unfortunately, they haven't really considered the fact that wholesale oil prices usually only affect the retail price when they're going up. When wholesale prices get cut, retailers are usually extremely slow to react and actually reduce the prices at the pump. And of course, if it's seen that this is all quite good and it is reducing fuel prices over here, Trump will probably lay claim to all the petrol stations in the UK and try and claim them as sovereign states of the US or something. Vauxhall Corsa Yes edition gets a price hike, but it's still cheap as chips. The petrol Corsa Yes version now starts from 18,995, but the electric version comes in at 27,495. This is madness. Stellantis need seriously to work on their pricing, because this is completely and utterly daft. The Vauxhall Frontera electric is 24 grand, 23 and a half grand actually. And the petrol one's the same price. So they've got complete price parity on that. Now that's a car that's bigger, better, you know, in pretty much every way, I would suggest. Why on earth are they charging that much for a Corsa electric? The Renault 5 is 22 and a half grand. Would you rather have the Renault 5 or the Corsa electric? I'd probably rather have that Renault 5. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat. I don't hear many people saying "fwa" when they look at the Corsa electric. You know, it's a chisel, it's a tool to do a job. And Stellantis would be well-minded to remember that. Crazy. I mean, there's the ZEV mandate as well. Wouldn't it be great if they made their entry point into electric cars? You know, Corsa is a good little car, but it's not anything that anyone's going to dream about. And that should be the entry point into electric cars for them. And it should be a hell of a lot less than 27 and a half grand, particularly when they've got their brand new SUV out at 23 and a half. It's insanity. Absolute insanity. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed that. Just a quick one today, but just want to get a video out for you. As a reminder again, the videos will be a little bit slower over the next couple of weeks, but then normal service will be resumed. And I've got some quite interesting stuff coming up towards the end of the month and early next month. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Huge thanks to all my channel members for your continued support. I really do appreciate it.